Have you ever felt completely overwhelmed by a big ambition? Like you need to change everything all at once, and then you just get stuck before you even start. I know I have. Well, today we're diving into something different, a gentler way. It's about what we're calling tiny experiments.
Ah.
Yeah, forget the huge goals, the massive to-do list for a second. A tiny experiment isn't really a goal. It's more like a curious little action, a playful test. It's asking, I wonder what might happen if I just try this. Just for a moment, or maybe just for today. And the really cool thing we found looking into this, like the perfect antidote to perfectionism. It frees you up from needing to get it right. It's all about exploring. Think of your life as like this ongoing experiment, a living laboratory. You're the scientist, you're the subject, you're watching what happens. And the big shift, in this lab, there's no failure. It's all just data, information.
That's such a key point, because traditional goals, they often trip us up, don't they? We see this huge mountain to climb, and we forget about the first tiny step, like meditation. Instead of, I have to meditate 30 minutes every single day, which is daunting, the tiny experiment asks, what happens if I just sit quietly for, say, 2 minutes before my coffee? Or maybe writing a book feels impossible. So instead, what if I write just one sentence today? Just see how that feels. The essence we found really boils down to no pressure, no big promises, just being present and seeing what unfolds.
I love that no failure, only data idea. It feels really liberating. But is there a risk? Does tiny ever become too small? Did the sources mention anything about, this maybe leading to just fiddling around without making real progress?
Or losing commitment? That's a really important question, actually. And the research suggests the intention is key. While tiny helps lower that initial resistance, the underlying aim keeps it meaningful. It's not about avoiding effort forever. It's about making that first step feel almost effortless. BJ Fogg, who did pioneering work on tiny habits, puts it nicely. The action is tiny, but the aspiration behind it can still be significant.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. So the small step serves the bigger picture eventually. Yeah. Now, a lot of this thinking, this elegant shift away from all or nothing, it draws inspiration from Anne-Laure. She's the founder of Nest Labs, really interesting place where science and mindfulness kind of meet. Her work was definitely essential to this deep dive.
Right. Lukav talks about tiny experiments as a way to build mental fitness. And it's important to get what she means by that. It's not about hustle culture, not grinding. It's more about flexibility, awareness, a sort of inner resilience. What's really fascinating, and where other research complements this, is the neuroscience behind it. Turns out our brains actually, well, they love novelty. They crave it. Even tiny little changes, a different route to work, trying a new word, that 2-minute quiet sit we mentioned, they don't just feel slightly interesting. They genuinely stimulate parts of the brain involved in reward and learning, like the BTA, and even encourage new neural connections. It's not just psychological, it's physiological. It keeps the brain adaptable.
Wow, okay, so it's like a little hack for the brain's own wiring, using its preference for novelty. That really explains why these tiny experiments work so well. They lower the stakes dramatically. What felt like a huge obstacle becomes just a small, curious step. It shifts you from trying to control everything to just being curious. And crucially, it seems to sidestep our internal resistance, that little voice that says, oh, that's too hard, or I'll fail. Oh, when your mind sees something as small, easy, temporary, it kind of relaxes. Then that relaxation, that's the opening, isn't it, for change to sneak in naturally.
Exactly. So maybe this is a good moment to ask you, listening right now, what small, curious thing could you try? We pulled together a few examples from the research, things people find really insightful, like what happens if you consciously decide to leave your phone in another room for just 1 hour each evening? See how that feels. Or how about greeting yourself in the mirror, not in a forced way, but just with a moment of kindness before the day rushes in? What changes, even subtly, when you really listen to someone truly listen without interrupting even just once? Or maybe, what if you wrote down one thing you're genuinely grateful for each night? Every night, just one thing.
Each one of those is less about achieving something big and more about just noticing. Think of it like planting a tiny seed. You're not forcing it to grow into a giant tree overnight. You're just planting it, giving it a little space, and watching with curiosity to see what might bloom from it. We often treat life like this giant checklist we have to conquer, right? Instead of maybe seeing it as more of a dance, something dynamic. Tiny experiments, they kind of help us get back to being lighter on our feet, more curious in our steps. They help us find that beginner's mind, again, a term that came up a lot, that place where, wonder is still alive, the ego isn't shouting so loud, and possibility feels real again.
So here's a direct invitation to you. Choose one tiny experiment, just one. For today, maybe tomorrow, make it really small. Keep it light. Make it personal to you. Remember, the purpose isn't about fixing yourself. It's more about finding yourself discovering something new. It's not trying to change the whole world in a day, but just shifting your world a tiny bit, maybe by just 1%, because that 1% done consistently, well, the evidence shows it adds up. It becomes everything over time.
Okay, let's make it super concrete right now. How about this? For the next 3 days, could you go for just a 5-minute walk? 5 minutes without your phone. And the only task is to simply notice. What do you see? What do you hear? What sensations do you feel?
Yeah, and then this is the second part. Take literally 1 minute afterwards to jot down what you noticed. Not just outside, but maybe what did you notice inside? Any thoughts, feelings, shifts? That's it. That's the experiment. That little bit of noticing, that's the awakening.
So let's maybe stop waiting for the lightning bolt, the big revelation. Let's start engaging with the small things instead. The sacred, the subtle stuff we usually overlook.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, honestly, sometimes one tiny experiment is all it takes to remember just how capable, how powerful you really are.
Stay curious.
And be open to the wonder of your own becoming.